Pierre-Olivier Pinault is like the expert now in energy that you will hear on CBC or in Radio-Canada and in major medias, and most of the time I think he's putting the right questions. I think he's kind of in quite progressist knower of the case, but the problem I have with most of his statements is that he believes a lot in the fact that as long as we apply the right rules, the right laws, and the right treaties, we can make oil exploitation good. And in fact, as a matter of fact, in the reality, when the rules, when the laws, when the national or international treaties they don't fit with the oil industry's expectation, politicians are just changing those rules and laws in order to let the freedom of the oil industry go. So, I mean, I've been quite involved. I don't want to be cynical, you know. I think that when I came to Anticosti, I really did believe that the power of 200 citizens altogether could have really imposed some respect to the oil industry and the government. And just a few days before Christmas, we had the report of the Le Bureau des Audiences Publiques en Environnement, the BAP. I don't know how do we say BAP in English. Sorry about that. But I mean, after 4 intense years of battle in the shale gas against the shale gas industry, indeed, in Quebec, we could say that the power of democracy and of the citizens really stopped the industry, and it worked. And I've been quite involved into that war, that battle, and in the end, we kind of want to feel that indeed in this country democracy can rule and can win those battles, and hopefully we could dream of a world where things could be well handled with oil. But what we see is that the oil in this country has changed the state of the science, the political, I mean, it's amazing to see how the oil industry has really turned upside down the political landscape in Canada. And now it's hard for the citizens in this island, so attached as they are, to really believe in their own power to rule. I would come and have one night with Pierre Etienne, who directed the movie with me. We invited the entire village for a get-together, just to talk about our experience with the shale gas industry, and say, well, if I were you, you know, we would go to the port the day the ship come with the boat comes with the drilling stuff, you know, you just say, no, you're not coming into our island until we have a guarantee on the way you're going to treat us and the land. But they don't believe in this power. That's the main thing, you know. That's the main smash I had in my face, and I think I translated quite clearly in the movie. It was really, to me, like a reality check, where on one hand, they want to preserve their quality of life, the wilderness of this life, and then on the other hand, they're really trapped by the fact that these guys need some jobs, and they want to have their kids at the school, and we've been shooting the first day of school last year, and it's something, you know, where when you realize that particular morning that there are like 13 kids going to school, and that this school might close in a few years if job doesn't come. The problem that we have there is that the only horizon seems to be oil, which is going to clearly spoil the place. I mean, it's already started. And but the good thing is that they didn't have the money enough, even though they had like this support from Pauline Marois. They didn't have the time to go through their entire project last season, and no one in the business, in the oil industry, as it said in the movie, really believes in this project. And I think, honestly, that I'm quite optimistic. I think that it's a bubble, and I don't think Anticosti in the end will be spoiled by this extreme oil project.
A question about the transition. Everybody knows.
Well,
2-3 year transition.
the transition is happening, clearly. Now, like over the last months, the oil, I mean, is it the Arabian that are the geopolitics of the world is ruling and changing the game and the rules in the market? But we know that in the middle term, we entered the era of extreme oil. We know that oil will get rarer and rarer, and the price will. I mean, it's very momentaneous to my perception that the oil price will keep on rising for sure. I mean, not necessarily next week, but they know that. I think the main fight is in the company, the rights on oil that the company have in their books is, what's this American that that actually came here for a conference? What's his name again? Bill McKibben. You probably saw this movie called Do the Maths. He just took the numbers and said, okay, there is like 8 times more oil in the company's book than that we can afford emitting in terms of carbon. So so we know that we crossed the border last year, we crossed the limit, but if we let them go, they're gonna burst it. They're gonna burst as much as they can. So there is a transition going on. I mean, there are people with Google and electric cars. There is a little revolution that has started in Silicon Valley and in China and in north of Europe. And some people, like Pierre Langlois, who is the physician who's in the movie, is quite optimistic about the change of the car industry. And he last week he posted something where he said that this might happen like the internet changed the way information was transmitted, and transportation might face quite a drastic, radical change. Then, so would this transition be enough, or would just only serve the capitalist industry, and in the end it would just go from oil to electricity? Well, in Quebec it would certainly be a good thing, because I think we paid the price to get this cleaner energy treasure here. But so I think the big challenge is to force this transition to happen. So, of course, like saying no to the pipeline, no to Anticosti, is forcing ourselves as a community to say, well, this is not the type of world we want to live in, because we have the global warming reason. And I think just using this levier, this case, you know, the global warming numbers and reality is the challenge we should face. And this is clearly, and now, like, people are because I'm an artist, I'm some sort of that, you know, hysterical poet, eco-terrorist. I cannot think, and I'm not rational, and I have no reasons. But I think, like, when you use, like, the Jansen's, the director of the NASA, you know, he said, okay, we cannot go on with this way. If not, this civilization is going to collapse in the next 40 years. So the reason, and there will be a huge statement from Canadian scientifics in the following weeks, in 3 or 4 weeks from now, there will be a coming out where the scientific, from coast to coast, they will say, okay, this is not the way Canada should go. We were leaders 20, 15 years ago, and now we're really like the black sheep on this, and on this case. And I think global warming should be really the field for us to gather and say, okay, this is not the planet we want to live in. And there are reasons for that. And these guys are the one that are irrational. And I think we are really on our right to work as hard as we can to stop that. Well, last summer they did explore. So they haven't done any fracking, but they did all the preparation in order to know where to frack. So they were supposed to like explore on, let's say, about something about in between 15 or 20 different spots. 15 different spots. And last November, when the hunting season started, they had to stop, and without having finished or achieved their first step. So now they're certainly, I think they plan to go back to the island next summer to finish this first step and probably do some fracking. Now, knowing that, first, I know that they don't have, it's quite an expensive project, and they don't have any support from the private industry. So in other words, if Marois wouldn't have given them their the 50 millions I think Petrolia touched to go to this phase, nothing would have happened. And that was really a shame. I met with the Minister of Natural Resources of the gouvernement de Pauline Marois the opening night of that movie, and I had a dinner with lunch with her 2 weeks ago. And she confirmed that when Marois announced that, right, a few weeks before she launched the election, she was advised, as the Minister of Natural Resources, she was advised of that spend from the government 60 minutes before the announcement. So that's quite revealing of the state of the democracy, of people like for patriotic reason, you know, because Jean Charest had taken those rights that belonged first to Hydro-Québec, and he sold it for like 10 cents an acre to the private industry. So, and so for people of the Parti Québécois, it was from some people in the Parti Québécois, because we had a lot of hope in people like Daniel Breton and Martine Ouellette when they were elected at first. We hope, and the announcement of the nuclear plant that was closed, and the asbestos company that was a project that was killed. You know, we were full of hope that finally, after like a decade of liberal government, things will move on the right direction, but it didn't happen. But what I'm saying is that they explored, they planned to frack, they would need to frack. Now, they just found in Gaspé some more conventional oil that is certainly easier to get from the ground, even though it's almost in the middle of the town in Gaspé. So I don't know exactly what their plan is, and we know that they're running short of money. In the announcements of Marois, there were two companies. Actually, there were three companies, but the second one is kind of tied with Petrolia, Corridor Resources. But the third one, Junex, they would have had the same amount of money from the government if they would convince any partners in the private to invest with them, and they never found this partner. So that type of signs, you know, including the market level, the value of their stock, the stock level, I used to check it every day or 2 times a day when I was doing the movie, but now it's still like, it's about 60 cents or 58 cents per action. So what I'm saying is that the people who knows the business, they know that this project is a giant with au pied d'argile. Is a very weak giant. So, and you know, probably somehow in the end, I'm not absolutely against the fact that we should exploit oil from this land. I'm not the type of guy who's saying, okay, we can do it in Algeria or Venezuela or wherever, and we shouldn't do that here and keep the dirty on the other people's backyard. But Anticosti is an extreme case where you have a place where wilderness exists, and you would be ready to spoil this place for what? For what reason? And we don't have a fucking plan in Quebec. That's the major thing. If someone would prove to everyone here that the deal is good for everyone, including a good transition plan, because I drove my car to come here, and I don't want to consider myself or anyone as like a pure. We are not free of fossil fuels, but we know we have to go to get free. We know we have to go into a désintoxication. How do you say that? Detox, exactly. We need to go to that. We know that. So the first thing is that let's stop thinking that oil is prosperity. Oil is the way of our future. It's the energy of we're slave of it. But that's the energy of the past. And there are alternatives. There are solutions. Not for everything. But so I wish we could, as a community, we could ourselves a plan where we would consider what is the place for oil and what kind of investment we should really do in order to have a planet that is indeed sustainable. I gave René Lévesque quite a good quote. In French, he says, le règlement raisonnable d'une situation parfaitement absurde. The reasonable règlement, solution to a very absurd situation. And he was talking about the way hydroelectricity was exploited in the territory of Quebec in the early 60s. But we could take the same quote talking about oil today. And I'm sure that if René Lévesque would be Minister of Natural Resources now, we would have someone to trust and someone to follow. I'm sure he would. I did that exercise. I'm writing an article on that. You know, what if he would be Minister of Natural Resources today? What would he do? What he did 50 years ago, he saw a problem and he said, okay, I'm here as a minister to serve the public interests against sometimes the interest of private and very powerful companies. And we're gonna change the rules. We're gonna go to Wall Street, because here at La Rue Saint-Jacques, the establishment, the English-Canadian establishment, didn't want to finance the Hydro-Québec, the nationalization of electricity. He was considered as a communist, as a socialist. And in the end, today, the financial situation of Quebec would be the same as it is in Greece or in Portugal if we wouldn't have Hydro-Québec as a common treasure. And so there's a lot of an héritage, how do we say? Heritage. I think René Lévesque's heritage weigh a lot and should give ourselves the trust in democracy. What he did in the early 60s, Jean Lesage, his own prime minister, was against the idea. But René Lévesque was so strong that he went to all over the place in Quebec to convince the people of Quebec that the project of nationalizing the hydroelectricity was a good thing. So what he said to the people, here is the situation, and here is the way we're going to change the situation for the deal to be good for every citizen in Quebec. And this is what happened. And after he convinced, and he took like months all over Quebec doing his pilgrimage, then they went where? To the first referendal election. The election in '62 was to ask the citizen of Quebec, do you approve this project of nationalization, yes or no? And the people vote. So what it was, a strong exercise of what we call volonté politique, the will of political will, for one. And he certainly embodied that political will. And then a very strong democratic exercise. The people were all together backing this project of René Lévesque. And I would challenge, and actually I did, but I will continue challenging Pierre-Carl Pelado or whoever, this prime minister, to take René Lévesque's example. You should give us the energetic plan that will serve the public interest and not the private interest that you are serving and that are ruling this democracy now. Yeah. On est en train de gagner la mobilisation citoyenne est en train de faire reculer TransCanada dans le projet à Kakuna. Ceci dit, ils ont quand même besoin, je ne sais pas ce qu'Obama a fait aujourd'hui, Obama était supposé d'imposer un veto sur Keystone. La Colombie-Britannique a refusé d'être le territoire de passage pour l'exportation des sables bitumineux. Les États-Unis au sud ont refusé. Et au Québec, jusqu'à tout récemment, on n'était pas en voie de refuser. Je pense que la mobilisation citoyenne est en train d'imposer le gros bon sens, mais c'est loin d'être gagné, cette bataille-là. Alors, on sait bien que pour sauver les belugas ou sauver Kakuna, ils vont trouver soit un autre endroit un peu plus haut à Matane, ou soit ils vont l'envoyer directement au Nouveau-Brunswick. Donc, les projets de pipeline n'ont pas cessé de nous envahir. On assiste présentement à une invasion systématique du territoire québécois par le pétrole. L'accident de train de Lac-Mégantic est venu après une augmentation de 28 000 % du transport du pétrole par train sur notre territoire. Je l'ai sorti à la statistique dans le film tellement je la trouvais aberrante. Et ça, c'est le fruit de politique de laisser faire. Le moins de règlements possible pour que le plus de pétrole possible puisse circuler autant que possible. Donc, on déréglemente à tour de bras et on arrête la surveillance. On n'arrêtera pas de surveiller les éco-terroristes de mon espèce ou de notre espèce. Il y a probablement ici ce soir des oreilles intéressées qui vont faire des rapports parce qu'on est sous surveillance. On le sent. Les organismes écologistes se font surveiller, se font envoyer des gens du ministère du Revenu pour passer au peigne fin leur compte. On est vraiment sous pression, tout le monde. Donc, la bataille est loin d'être gagnée, mais ce sont des signes qui nous envoient que l'industrie a peur, que les politiciens ont peur, parce que sinon, ils nous laisseraient la paix, ils nous laisseraient parler librement. Quand on commence à museler les scientifiques, on atteint à l'esprit critique à Radio-Canada ou ailleurs, quand on menace ouvertement, qu'on traite la générosité de la philosophie écologiste, quand on la traite de terroriste dans le pays où je pense que c'est un signe que les géants ont des pieds d'argile. Donc, j'ai envie de croire que la démocratie peut triompher. J'ai pas envie d'être cynique. On pourrait l'être. Il y aurait plein de raisons de l'être, mais je pense qu'on a passé, Pierre-Étienne et moi, beaucoup de temps dans le bas du fleuve depuis plusieurs mois, depuis un an, depuis la sortie du film. Il y a une mobilisation citoyenne extrêmement forte de jeunes de 30-35 ans avec des familles, des enfants, des gens qui sont partis de Montréal, qui sont allés prendre racine, faire vivre un autre art de vivre, une autre façon de bâtir des maisons, de manger du pain. Il y a une transition qui est en cours à tout azimut et j'ai envie de croire qu'on s'en va du bon côté des choses. Il reste que ce sont des ennemis extrêmement puissants, et que l'opinion publique n'est pas tout à fait gagnée, mais je pense que, overall, quand même, au Québec, les gens ont développé une culture grandissante contre le projet de Kakuna. C'est sûr qu'on aimerait ça que ça aille plus vite. On aimerait ça que, en Allemagne, au lendemain de Fukushima, la première économie d'Europe, au lendemain de Fukushima, une économie extrêmement dépendante de l'énergie nucléaire, mais qui a décidé de considérer la contribution écologiste comme une contribution positive à l'économie, ont décidé de se sortir du nucléaire. Les Danois, au lendemain de l'échec du sommet de Copenhague sur le réchauffement climatique, le gouvernement danois a mis au défi la classe des ingénieurs danois de tout mettre en œuvre, ce qui est possible, pour que le Danemark se sorte du pétrole. Et ils ont accouché d'une politique énergétique qui devrait rendre le Danemark oil-free. Il est permis quand même de questionner, là, mais le projet, c'est de s'éloigner du pétrole complètement d'ici 2050. Au lendemain de Lac-Mégantic, Quand un train bourré de pétrole de schiste vient brûler littéralement 50 personnes au cœur d'une petite ville du Québec, il me semble que le Québec, dans son entièreté, aurait dû se lever debout, se dire, là, on a un problème avec le pétrole, et le projet, c'est pas de s'y enfoncer davantage, mais c'est de s'en débarrasser. Alors, c'est sûr que sur la table, c'est pas des projets d'éloignement du pétrole qui intéressent nos gouvernements, c'est des projets de nous enfoncer davantage dans le pétrole, mais j'ai envie de croire que, on l'a vu avec le gaz de schiste, on le voit avec Kakuna, on le voit avec Anticosti, on le voit à Gaspé, il y a des foyers de résistance de plus en plus solides qui, je l'espère, vont finir par imposer le respect, puis qu'on arrête de passer pour des bloqueux, des écoterroristes, puis des chialeux, et des rêveurs. Ces rêveurs-là sont au pouvoir présentement en Allemagne et au Danemark, les pays parmi les plus prospères, et dans le cas du Danemark, les plus égalitaires, parce qu'il y a une équation qu'on peut faire aussi. Hein. Au Canada, plus on s'enfonce dans le pétrole, plus on augmente aussi les inégalités. Et j'ai envie de référer à ce que René Lévesque... Il ne faut pas oublier une chose qui me fait tellement plaisir de le rappeler à toutes les fois que je peux. Je le dis dans le film et je vais le répéter. Le Québec a fondé sa modernité énergétique il y a 50 ans sur 2 valeurs fondamentales, une énergie propre et le partage de la richesse. Voici ce que nous sommes et voici ce que nous voulons. Une énergie propre et un partage de la richesse. Je pense qu'autour de ça, on a encore beaucoup de mille à faire. Well, I'd say that Anticosti is quite a complex reality indeed, you know, and I'm opening the movie on that image of the deer. They didn't belong to the island, they were imported, and then they started eating, literally, the island. This is why it became a paradise for hunters, which is not anymore, because for many reasons, you know, the fact that actually there is a deer population explosion in the United States, so less American comes to this used to be very famous spot for salmon fishing and deer hunting. So the tourist industry is getting lower and lower over the recent years. So this is one of the problems they're facing. Then it's not like one of the biologists that we met, he was the expert in the insect. He worked for the wood industry, the wood cutting industry with the insect, and he told us what a nightmare it is for nature because of the predation of the deer. I mean, they're literally turned upside down the nature of this island over the last century. So the island is not as wild or as virgin as we think. There are still like parts that are kind of untouched, almost, let's say almost virgin, but still there are deers, and they would eat the sous-bois, the forest. And beside that, the nature of the oil shale, the fracking would just take out in between, let's say, 5 and 15% of the oil or the gas that's in the rock. So in order to make that rentable, profitable, they need to drill and drill and drill and drill. So, and this is like the theory of Marc Durand. He says, okay, if we apply the reality of North Dakota on the island, that will get to a certain amount of, let's say, in between, what's the number, the right? 12,000. So we just try to be as objective. I really insist, even with the one who was doing the drawing, let's try to take a reality and really apply it to Anticosti, because I'm gonna be told that I'm an artist and I'm just drawing nightmares for the public, you know, to give a good show. So, but no one knows for real how many wells they will be in reality. But one thing is sure, that to be profitable, there will be a need for a huge amount of wells, because you can also imagine that they would need also a port or a way to get the oil and the gas out of the island, which is a lot of investment. So in the end, the question is it worth it, the investment? And the industry, most of the people in the industry and the one who financed the industry, they say, no, there's no business to do there. Shell went there, Esso went there, they all went. And now Petrolia, because they have Lucien Bouchard as their representative, they succeeded to convince Pauline Marois, because she wanted to show to the rest of the Quebec that she could also do big business, to invest, but they were the only ones. So it's a kind of a tricky situation, but you know, in the end, I come from Sorel, which is an hour from here, a very industrial town. I was born there. I'm not afraid of like big industries and workers. But what I remember from my grandfather and father is that once they worked very hard, they had a place that they call Les Îles, the island of Sorel, where a certain virginity was, and there were birds and ducks and nature, you know, where they could fish and have a refuge somewhere. And I think that one of the dream that founded this country is the fact that there is a place where you can feel free, in phase with nature, in harmony with nature. And if we are at the point where we're ready to spoil places like Anticosti, we showed pictures, you know, we had this afternoon where we met like, there were maybe like 8 whales and hundreds and thousands of birds and fishes. And we were really like kind of said by nature, okay, here we are and you are at our place. And in the name of preserving this on this planet, in this country, I think it's worth it saying, okay, there is something. Are we going to spoil Anticosti in order to fulfill Hummers in downtown Montreal? No. That's the thing, you know, and that's the absurdity of somehow like like I work in Las Vegas, you know, I could see Hummer limousine. I say, okay, this would be the reason why we could spoil Anticosti. I'm not buying that. I don't want to live that, and I'm going to fight against that. So, and it's certain that if ever the oil industry starts on Anticosti, it's game over for fishing, hunting, and the art of living that exists there for generations.